Hello, my name is Dan Robertson. I'm the director of Visida Consulting. And today I want to share with you through this mini podcast my thoughts on gender inclusion in the workplace. I've worked in this field for over a decade now, and I have to say it's great that we've seen some really real progress actually in terms of doing two things. One is really attracting and holding on to female talent at work, but also we've seen some real movement actually in terms of pushing women up into the pipeline. And so we see much more representation at that senior level. That said, there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think what I want to share with you for the next few minutes is what I see as those real gender biases holding women back, but also what we can do to push gender inclusion forward. In terms of the gender biases, there's three that I want to share. The first is around what we call gender benevolence. And the classic example around gender benevolence is a female colleague returns from maternity leave and a manager has a conversation with her about an opportunity. And the conversation goes something like this: I've got this opportunity. You've just come back off maternity leave. I tell you what, why don't you find your groove? Why don't you, find your balance between your new home responsibilities and your work responsibilities, and we'll come back to you at a point in time when we feel you're ready. Interestingly, the motivation for that conversation is around protection. It's around looking after and ensuring that colleagues are ready to go. The problem with that is that opportunities are generally withdrawn from females, particularly in those scenarios, and they're given to other colleagues, often male colleagues, without such childcare responsibilities. So gender benevolence is a real insidious type of gender bias, which really has a detrimental effect on women's career track. The second is around the Old Boys Network. Unfortunately, the Old Boys Network is alive and well today and does have a particular impact on women's careers. Women are often offered formal sponsors or mentors rather at work. So women are offered the mentoring programs, whereas men get the informal sponsors, the informal advocates, the ones that really help to fast track their career, the corridor conversations, the talking up in team meetings, excuse me, and things like that. So we see that differential between the mentoring for women and the sponsorship for male colleagues. And then thirdly, it's around what we might call that double bind. So as women move up that pipeline, we start to see a decrease in perceptions of likability as we see an increase in perceptions of competences. That's the classic gender stereotype. It's kind of like, the Hillary Clinton effect, which we definitely do not see with men. So all of these types of biases really start to kind of collude together. They're a bit like best friends, really, and they start to have a real detrimental impact in terms of women's careers. The question, therefore, then is what can we do? And the good news is that when we understand what these biases are, we can learn to mitigate against them. First piece of advice I would suggest is around actually repositioning the whole debate. This debate is not around fixing the women, it's actually around fixing the system. And in order to fix the system, we've got to start talking about gender inclusion in the round and really engaging men in this conversation. How can we get male senior leaders in particular to talk about their own constraints, how gender bias constrains them as male role models and things like that, but also getting men to lean into the conversation around gender bias and gender exclusion. And as they are currently in positions of power, thinking about what they can do every day to mitigate some of these biases. Secondly, it's around what we call the principle of amplification. And that's some of those simple things really, is amplifying and giving a voice to female colleagues. So that's ensuring that their voice is heard and respected in critical team meetings, when they're in project discussions, when they're doing, perhaps client pitches, or whatever the work might be, but really kind of, pushing forward that female voice, ensuring that it's given equal air time. And thirdly, it's around sponsorship. So it's around men leaning into this conversation and being sponsors and advocates for female talent deep in the pipeline, so they can really, be that critical friend, be that voice in the meeting, pushing their career forward. So when we see these movements together of engaging men, calibrating the conversation, stretching it out, moving it away from a fix the women to a fix the system conversation, amplification and sponsorship, we really do start to see some movement. Find out more, connect with us at Visida Consulting. Details are on the screen. We'd love to talk to you more. Thank you.